Reborn in Bleach, conquering Rukia and protecting the Soul Society. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 11. Oh, that's amazing, this guy can talk. My name is Kigo Asano, you can talk about Asano. Kigo Asano sat down in front of the birdcage and treated the parrot as if it were a human, chattering about complimentary settings like nicknames. Looking at Kigo Asano, who was communicating with the parrot, Ichigo and Rukia were more concerned about the other soul inside the parrot. Although I can feel the aura of emptiness on its body, it is not from itself. Rukia said in a low voice, so that the water on the side would not be heard. Kigo asked after pausing to communicate with the parrot. Where did this parrot come from? Yesterday. Chato replied, then was silent for more than 10 seconds, and then continued. People gave it. Hey, you must have been too lazy to explain in the middle of the story, so you omitted a lot. Kigo Asano couldn't help but complain, and Zero-Gia noticed that there was a void and quickly rushed towards the birdcage, and he quickly got up and pushed away Kigo and Chato, and the birdcage rolled aside. It was a two-armed, long-armed bat wing with a square mask on its face, and it swooped down into the air, bringing up a huge wind pressure to blow the water and others against the railing. Rukia. Zero called out to Rukia, but Rukia did not respond to him, but tacitly took out the skull glove that could push out the soul and pushed Zero-Gia's soul out. Brother. Ryosuke naturally knew what Ichigo meant, and Ryosuke, who was in a state of death, said. No, you take them to safety first, and I'll deal with it. Ichigo was about to refute, looking at the watercolor that was bleeding from his head and Kigo who was in a coma, so he could only listen to Ryosuke's words and carry Mizus and Kigo. Chato, are you alright? You help me carry Zero. Okay. After Chato agreed, he picked up Zerosuke's body. Rukia, you follow them, this guy was attracted by a parrot, I'm afraid there are other guys. Okay, then be careful yourself. After Rukia finished speaking, she followed Ichigo and the others out of the roof, leaving Ryosuke to confront the bat that had reflown into the air. Death, then presumably the disappearance of that sister is also a good thing you did, right? Said Bat in a hoarse male voice. Sister control? Sister control? Zero-Gia was stunned for a moment and then understood, Bat Void should be talking about Brother Inoue who turned into a snake body last night, looking at the Bat Void who was flying higher and higher, and had a bad premonition. It's too high, it's hard to deal with this situation just by using the ability of the Sleeve Snow, and the Bat Void is very smart not to come into direct contact with himself, only to see the Bat Void circling around and spilling many particles, and then completely hiding in the void space. It wasn't until the particles were only 4 or 5 meters away from Zero-Gia that they could see that it was the ability of the bat to create a monster like a frog, and the ability was able to cause an explosion, except for some of the scattered to Zero-Gia, and a large part of it was aimed at the crowd on the playground. Damn, Ling Wu, Nameless Thousand Faces, the current copy object Sleeve White Snow. The power of the void is in effect. First dance, Moon White, 31 red cannons of breaking the road. Icicles and explosions rose one after another, and even then they failed to intercept all the monsters, and when the remaining 2 monsters were almost on top of the crowd, 2 arrows glowing with blue light pierced them, causing them to dissipate instead of causing an explosion. It's embarrassing, Grim Reaper. Ishida Yuryu, who was holding a blue spirit bow in his right hand, appeared on the roof, and as soon as Ryosuke wanted to turn around, 2 arrows shot at his feet. I will continue to watch you to see if the Grim Reaper is necessary. After saying that, Ishida Yuryu left, not knowing that even if Ryosuke didn't turn around, he already knew his identity. The mainline pre-task is triggered, Ishida Yulong's judgment, success is rewarded, failure is entered. The voice of the system sounded at the right time. Ishida Yulong also appeared in advance, it's really troublesome for his distorted personality, if I stimulated him just now, maybe he would have crushed the false bait by now, damn it. Zero complained to himself. Aizen Sosuke is very interested in you, and his favorability has increased and his current favorability is 1.5%. Zero-Gia didn't have a trace of joy at all about this system prompt for the improvement of favorability, but felt that a pair of invisible eyes had been watching his every move, and a chill that penetrated into the bone marrow rose. At the same time, he was glad that he didn't use other slashing knife abilities, although he didn't know if he could escape Aizen's eyes, so he could only hope that it would have an effect, and Aizen's existence was like a sword of Damocles hanging above his head at all times. Thankfully, nothing happened until the end of school, and although Zero persuaded Chato to keep the parrot for his own safekeeping, he was simply refused. In fact, Zero-Gia probably guessed the reason. The bat deceived Yuichi that as long as he could escape his 3-month pursuit, it promised to resurrect Yuichi's dead mother. Of course, it was impossible to do it. Knowing this reason, Zero Jia didn't dwell too much on this matter. Bat Void obviously knows the gap with his own strength. If you intervene too much, you won't have a chance to eliminate it, although it's not very comfortable to use Chato and Yuichi as bait, but this is also the only way now. Later, Rukia's cell phone rang, and 10 minutes after the empty seat of Hanmachi Station appeared. I'll go, you guys go back and rest first. I think the bat during the day will come out at night. Then be careful yourself. Rukia said as she pushed Zero's soul out with her skull glove. Zero soon arrived at Kusa Hanmachi Station. The enemy was a praying mantis, but strangely one of its arms had been wounded, and it looked like it had been bitten by something, and it had deep tooth marks. Zero Jia didn't liberate nameless thousand faces, but just wiped out the void with a single blow through a simple sword technique, saving the soul of a young man in a car accident. Did you see that mantis-like monster? How did it get hurt? Asked Zerosuke as he buried the boy's soul. There was a praying mantis monster at first, but it was grabbed and eaten by a monster with bat wings, and the bat only bit off one arm when it flew down the second time. Watching the boy turn into a black butterfly and fly towards the corpse soul realm, he muttered to himself. Ordinary voids can also become stronger by devouring each other, and, on the other side, Ichigo's body suddenly moved. Ichigo and Rukia were taken aback. Ryosuke's soul obviously didn't come back, only to see Ryosuke's body leap out of Ichigo's control. You? Ichigo said in surprise. Rukia was also on guard, and Ryosuke's body twisted and stretched to look at the two of them, looking at them with a contemptuous look. Rukia and Ichigo were clearly able to sense that he was definitely not Zerosuke, and Zerosuke's body spoke. Oh, the little ghost back then, but now I'm not interested in you. Void power upgrade, currently level 2, episode 12. Ichigo Kurosaki was completely puzzled by the words of the guy in front of him who controlled Kurosaki Zerosuke. That Zero also seemed to see that the other party didn't remember him, and didn't show dissatisfaction, and was about to release his spiritual pressure for Ichigo and Rukia to think about it. I only heard the loud chanting sound coming from the original. The thundering chariot, the crevices of the spinning wheel, this thing has light, and it is divided into 61 of the bound path, 6 rods of light. The 6 pieces of light firmly locked on Zero's body, and the body slowly turned to the direction where Death Zerosuke came. It's a pity, I want to play more. It wasn't until Zerosuke, who was in a state of death, came to him that Zero looked his head slowly at the sky somewhere and smiled. Seeing that Zero Jia returned and controlled his body, he finally couldn't help but ask. Zero, what's going on? Zerosuke didn't answer Rukia's question right away, but quickly returned to his body and replied after confirming that he was in complete control. The wound I suffered when I rescued you that night invaded the power of the void, and although I don't know the reason, it seems to be the void. Ichigo and Rukia recalled at the same time the fishbone void that attacked everyone that night. Rukia recalled a more distant memory, that day Shiba Heian was corrupted by the void and killed him with his own hands, and couldn't help but be vigilant against the Zerosuke in front of him. Are you really back to normal now? Rukia pointed her right palm at Zerosuke, as if ready to unleash the Oni Dao. Rukia Kuchiji is suspicious of you. Zero sighed silently, for he wasn't sure if he could count normal now, and on the way he confirmed what changes had been made to the power of the second void level. The power of the void has been assimilated by the system, and has become a system creation that is very similar to the setting of the void in this world, just like his unique slashing knife. What is even more terrifying than the slashing knife is that it has self-consciousness and has all the memories of Zero. In other words, it also knows the plot of the original work, and the only thing to be thankful for is that it can't use too much power for the time being, and the source of the power of the two is the same, and the weight of this matter is higher. It's been recovered for the time being, but the problem doesn't seem to have been completely resolved. Zero didn't hide the two of them, and continued. The plan is still the same. I'll go to the store manager in Urahara and see if he can do anything. Who's that manager, Urahara? Ichigo asked curiously. Ryosuke remembered that Ichigo had lost consciousness when Kasuke Urahara came that night, so he said. I'll introduce you next time. After saying that, he quickly left. Too many things were stacked together, and Zero asked himself if he had no time to waste it. In the corpse soul realm, Aizen looped the brief encounter between Zero and his own body, and it was not accurate to call it a confrontation, but it controlled it when the body wanted to use its power. In the end, the picture freezes on the body looking up at himself and smiling at the watchful self, and through years of research, he can tell that the blocked power is obviously from a false source, which is too interesting. It is something that he has not yet known. Aizen suppressed the smile at the corner of his mouth by pushing his glasses, but this subtle change still did not escape the eyes of Ishimaru Jin. It was too abnormal. Ikamaru Silver had not seen such a Captain Aizen for nearly 100 years, and the last time was so long ago that it was blurry. Shiba Zirusuke, Ikamaru Silver secretly wrote down this name in his heart, and he must see for himself what kind of character he is in the future. I wish I could get to me sooner, but it's still too weak. Aizen muttered to himself with a smile on the corner of his mouth. Ikamaru Silver on the side naturally understood the meaning of Captain Aizen's words, and another person was going to become Captain Aizen's cultivation toy. After a while, he arrived at the Urahara store and knocked on the door. Who, don't knock so late, hello. It's the rain that opens the door, and it's naturally Hanakari who complains loudly. I'm looking for the manager of Urahara, is he there? He's inside. Sholing, Tiejai, who was sorting out the goods on the side, saw Zero Jia coming, and nodded politely. Oh, isn't this Mr. Zero? It's coming again in such a short time, won't there be any trouble again? Urahara Kasuk covered half of his face with a fan, and looked Zero Jia up and down. Obviously not long after the separation, the spiritual pressure was doubled from the last training, and the current spiritual pressure was obviously mixed with the smell of nothingness. Zero was about to speak, but Kasuk Urahara was the first to speak. I guess let's go to our last place, my old waist is moving again. Seeing this, he was about to close the door, but was stopped by Kasuk Urahara and said that there might be guests in a while. Ryosuke and Urahara leaped into the underground cavern, and the traces of the last battle have not yet healed. Tell me, what's the problem with your visit this time? It has something to do with the void. I think it's better for you to see for yourself, the store manager. Hearing Zirusuke's statement, Urahara Kasuk was still a little surprised. After all, in his opinion, Zirusuke's predictability was genuine, and the question that made him distressed Urahara Kasuk was still very curious. What you didn't even know? As he spoke, he pointed to his head, because he came in the flesh this time, and there was no way to get out of his soul by himself and needed the help of the store manager. Urahara Kasuk was naturally able to comprehend what he meant, and poked the bottom of the crutch with the skeleton on his forehead, and Zero's soul came out of his body. The power of the void has taken effect and taken over your righteous remains. Although Zero Jia guessed that he was not a human being, it was the first time that he was confirmed from the mouth of the system. Void quickly took over his body, and when he found out that he was in the hollow of the Urahara store, he no longer hid his spiritual pressure. Kasuk Urahara looked at the void in front of him that occupied the flesh of Zero, and his brows couldn't help but wrinkle into Sichuan characters. This is 100% empty, but what is going on with this existence? Although its own spiritual pressure is not strong, it gives him a very subtle feeling. Mr. Zero, what is this? Kasuk Urahara, right, forgive me for not being able to give my name when we first met. After saying hello to Kasuk Urahara, he shouted to Zero on the side. So Zero, hurry up and give me a name. Kasuk Urahara's expression did not change, and the crutch in his hand silently liberated into a red Heim. Actually, you don't need to be so nervous, you see how weak I am, you can treat me as a transformed soul, such a gesture is just convenient for communication. The body controlled by the void froze, and Zero's eyes suddenly turned pitch black, and his mouth began to speak uncontrollably. It's always not good. Void robs you of control of your face. An icy system prompt sounded. Episode 13. But soon the void retreated to Zirusuke's body, and Urahara Kasuk touched his chin with his left hand when he saw this, not knowing what he was thinking. Void relinquishes control of your face. Talk, I'm still willing to solve problems through communication. I've seen many cases of being corrupted by the void, but being able to exist on its own is definitely unheard of. Just now I thought about sealing or destroying your body, but it seems to come from your own existence, and doing so does not destroy it. Kasuk Urahara spoke his judgment, thought about it, and added. I haven't personally experienced the power of the void, I think you should go to them, the power of the void is irreversible, you can only learn to control this power. Ryosuke naturally knew who Urahara Kasuk was referring to when he went to find them, and that was the masked army formed by the organization formed by Hirako Mako, Tsuruki Hiyori, Yagamaru Lisa, Ariakata Hagen, and Rokucha Kenishi, who had escaped to the present world because they were persecuted by Aizen and obtained the power of the void. Before Ryosuke could speak, the void spoke in his place. Oh, the Kamen army is powerful, Mako Hirako. Urahara Kasuk instantly put Honheim on Sue's neck, and Shumon touched the blade with his fingertips and smiled. Don't be so nervous, my mouth is very tight, and even if you destroy this body, the biggest victim is not me. Zero silently returned to his body, regaining control of his body, and spoke. If the store manager Urahara can't help it, then I'll leave first. By the way, there is one more thing, will ordinary voids take the initiative to devour their kind? After a long period of killing and eroding each other, hundreds of voids finally formed a fusion and became a new individual, the so-called lower level of the Great Void, Killian. but this kind of thing generally only happens in the void circle, and the reality of the void generally only kills souls or human beings. It should be in a hurry, I'll go first. Kasuke Urahara watched Zirosuke quickly climb the ladder and leave, muttering to himself. Strange void, the virtual erosion of each other in this world, is a UAI Jean, it seems that you should let the night come back early. Zirosuke, who had just returned home, was surprised to see the gate of the hospital and Kurosaki's house open. Hurry up and get out of the way. Walking into the house, Yuko Kurosaki was running towards the hallway with a pile of disinfectant and bandages. Don't get in the way, passed by the wanderer just now, and now it was Xiao Li's turn to push the hospital bed and run quickly. Listen, tell you that the dean said that this was Kurosaki's request, so that there are as many beds as you want. Do you understand? Reisuke thought back to the memory in his head and secretly screamed that it was not right. It was Ichigo who was supposed to be here at this time, so where is it now? Ichigo and Rukia should have come back a long time ago, not good. There's another big man, Ryosuke, you're back, aren't you? Come and help carry him in. Hearing Ishin's shout, Ryosuke immediately arrived at the door, looking at the person on Ishin's shoulder. It was Chato as he expected, but there was no birdcage by his side. Everyone in the examination room took off Chato's shirt, and there was a huge scar on his back, which looked like it had been scratched by some huge creature, and the wound was still bleeding, and the edges showed signs of burning. What a serious injury. Even the wanderer, who usually helps Ishin and has seen all kinds of injuries, couldn't help but gasp. Ryosuke saw Chato's mouth open and closed on the bed as if he was saying something, and Ryosuke leaned his head close to hear clearly. Yuichi. Ichigo. Rukia. Repeating the names of the three of them in his mouth, Zero said that it was not good, and the spiritual pressure around him was concretized into a spiritual network, looking for the spiritual network belonging to Ichigo and Rukia. I found it, but it's far to the north. Zero muttered to himself in his heart. Looks like you need help? Zero's voice sounded in his heart. You know, it's probably too late for you to get through the flesh, that thing is not simply nothing, so, what is the purpose of your help me? Zero asked rhetorically. I'm thankful that I can evolve to this point, it's just my way of saying thank you. You have no other choice now, let me be your righteous soul pill, my king. The power of the void takes effect. In the end, Zero accepted Void's proposal in silence, and when he entered the state of death, Zero Jia rushed to the location of Ichigo and Rukia. At this time, the medicine came in, and he looked at Ling Jia in front of him and was slightly stunned, and asked with a smile. Is there anything I can do to help? The king's landing, the mask of flesh and blood, the Vientian, the wings flapping high, the one who bears the name of man, truth and moderation, stands only with his minions on the wall of a dream that does not know sin. Broken Path 33, Flame Fall. Rukia stretched out her left hand and shot a blue-white flash of light, hitting Bat Void's head. A violent explosion was triggered, and smoke rose in a curling air. Rukia sighed in her heart that she had regained this level of strength, and it was not far from recovering the power of her own death. The white smoke that enveloped the bat's virtual head gradually dissipated as the bat twisted its head. What? Rukia looked at its head in surprise, unscathed, and Ichigo, who was injured and drooping from his left hand, also looked at the scene in front of him. Wouldn't it? Hehe, I know it was the Grim Reaper spell just now, right, but your power is too weak, and there are too many flaws. It wasn't you who killed that girl, it was the guy on the roof in the morning, right? The bat flapped its wings, and Ichigo and Rukia barely resisted the strong current, which mixed with gravel and scratched her knees, and blood ran down her delicate calves, drawing a line of blood. The bat looked at the two of them silently, and licked his lips with his tongue with a round hole in the middle. It turns out that you are also the Grim Reaper, no wonder it smells so sweet, Grim Reaper really misses. It was so delicious to eat two Grim Reapers, who planned to make that little ghost become a Buddha. The bat felt a familiar spiritual pressure approaching, and suddenly his muscles swelled, and a second pair of wings appeared from under his armpits, flapping violently with excitement. Ichigo thrust his knife into the ground to resist the current, and Rukia was carried up by the current and crashed into the arms of the man behind her. You're finally here, and I prepared something for you. Ryosuke put his left hand around Rukia's waist to help her stabilize her body in the airflow, and with his right hand he freed up the slashing blade Nameless Thousand Faces. Ling Wu, Nameless Thousand Faces. Episode 14. Oh, what is that? Do you want to fight me with that little thing? I'm very different from the last time we met. Shan announced loudly. Of course Zero knew that after devouring his companion, the bat's virtual strength had increased greatly, and Shibata Yuichi opened his mouth in the birdcage that had been deformed by the collision. I'm sorry, I really want to resurrect my mother, it's all because of all of me. Zero Jia swung his knife and froze the frogs that flew in with the air current, freezing them out and preventing them from exploding. Brother, I can continue. Ichigo wiped the blood from his forehead with his hand, wanting to fight Bat Void with Zirosuke. He's not someone you can handle right now, don't force yourself. Rukia picked up the birdcage and pulled Ichigo to hide around the corner, her expression serious before asking. You said you wanted to resurrect your mother, who told you that there was a way to tell you? Rukia also made a wish that if Vice Captain Shiba Hayan could be resurrected, she didn't care even if she sacrificed her own life. But there is no way to resurrect the dead, and praying for it is a blasphemy against the order in which the world works. Zero Jia kept waiting the nameless thousand faces, constantly freezing and smashing the frog that flew with the air current, and the white ribbon at the end of the knife kept flying with the wave. Hey, you're doing it cleanly. Do you think they are the only bombs themselves? With the sound of the bat, the flying frog began to spit slime out of its mouth, but it was frozen and turned into ice within range of the nameless face. Of course I know it's not just bombs in their own right, but slime too. Are you so afraid of me? I'm disappointed that I'm still so timid even if I have increased my strength. Zirosuke tried to provoke Bat Void with verbal provocation and get it to come forward, which proved to be effective. What are you talking about? How can I be afraid of you anymore? I've eaten several of them with just death. It was at this time that Zero Jia threw a nameless thousand faces violently, and one of the left wings that pierced Bat Void instantly froze. Bat Void dodged backwards in a panic because of the sudden attack, and Zero Jia borrowed the technique of the knife chain to use spiritual pressure to withdraw a nameless thousand faces from his hand and mocked. Were you scared just now? Mocking words combined with sneer, the bat swooped down towards Zero in desperation, and Zero Jia did not scare the enemy in the slightest, stabbing the tip of his knife into the ground in all directions, and a trace of cold air rose from all directions. Second dance, White Ripple. With Zero's words, a powerful cold air was released towards the Bat Void like an avalanche, completely freezing the Bat Void, and a huge ice cube slid in front of Zirosuke, and Zero Jia slowly stabbed the blade into the Bat Void's head. As Ryusuke pulled out the nameless thousand faces, the scar shot a white light towards the sky. In this way, the light spreads through the air, drawing a huge rectangle. In the middle of the light grid, a scarlet door suddenly appeared. Two doors more than 10 meters long, decorated with a skeleton with only the upper body on the left and right. What is this? Asked Ichigo Kurosaki, who was standing not far behind, looking at the scene. That's hell. Rukia, who was standing beside him, replied. I should have said that being slashed by the slasher would wash away their sins, and that would send them to the corpse soul realm. But the slashing knife can only clear them of the guilt they committed as voids, and not all voids can go to the corpse soul realm. According to the regulations, those who have committed serious evil deeds in the past will be extradited to hell to receive their punishment. The tightly wound chains that had been in the middle of the door broke from top to bottom, and the door slowly opened. You see, the gates of hell are open. As a red light bloomed, a wave of heat with a fishy smell erupted, along with which came countless crimson chains, winding the bat's void ice into the air. A huge hand stretched out from the door, holding a large knife that was more than a meter wide alone, and pierced the bat void with one sword, and as the hand slowly withdrew into the door gradually closed, and the gate of hell dissipated into pieces. All that is left is the deep memory in the hearts of everyone. So did he go to hell? Asked Ichigo. The kind of guy who has so many lives in front of him, there's nowhere else to go. Rukia said. It was just when he was fighting in Zirosuke that Yuichi Shibata told Ichigo and Rukia about the series of things about his mother being killed by a serial murderer, causing the murderer to die, and then the murderer becoming a void. Zirosuke put away his sword and walked towards Ichigo and Rukia. Aizen is a little bored, and his opinion has increased by 1%, and it is currently 2.5%. To this hint, Zero Jia could only smile wryly back. How's it going? Asked Rukia, who was on one knee and covered the parrot with her hand, to which Rukia simply shook her head in response. It's a pity that the chain of cause and effect has disappeared without a trace, and so long has passed, and it is impossible for him to return to his body now. How could it be? Shibata lowered his head gloomily, and in order to encourage him, Rukia was about to speak, but Zero was the first to speak. Don't worry. The corpse soul realm is not terrible at all, unlike hell. For people without spiritual power, they are not hungry, and their bodies are lighter than in this world, and most of the time they are better than in this world, right? Ryosuke smiled at Rukia, who was wondering why he knew what he wanted to say. Ah, that's right. Ryosuke continued, it's true that your mother can't be resurrected, but as long as you go over there, your mother should be waiting for you somewhere in the corpse soul realm. It was such a sentence that rekindled the light in Shibata's heart. Okay, then let me bury your soul. What happened to the uncle who took me before? Did you say Chadu? I think you will have a chance in the future. In the deep night sky, the black-feathered phoenix butterfly that represented the soul of the boy quietly flew up and flew towards the moon. The main quest is completed. Chado Taihu, Kurosaki Ichigo, and Kuchiki Rukia's friendship has increased by a small amount of spiritual pressure, and the current friendship of Chadu has increased by a small amount of physical strength, and Ichigo has 3%, and Rukia's favorability has been rewarded with 5.5% of spiritual pressure and ghost path understanding, triggering the first date of the branch. Just as Zero was still stunned by her first date, Rukia spoke. Zero, why do you know that I want to comfort him by saying that? Actually, you can read my thoughts and see what I'm thinking now. Ryosuke finished speaking and looked at Rukia with a gentle look, and Rukia's face turned red and shouted in panic. I don't have that ability. Ichigo on the side rolled his eyes again, before speaking. Brother, I still haven't been able to help this time. What stupid thing are you talking about? How could I have come here without your support? But I want to be as strong as you, and help you take some of the pressure off of it. Ryosuke said as he reached out and kneaded Ichigo's hair into a chicken nest. Isn't it normal for an older brother to protect his younger brother? Don't be in a hurry. Episode 15. When the three of them return to Kurosaki's house, Rukia expertly jumps up to the second floor, while Reisuke finds the Void who is helping out in the consultation room. Void also noticed that Zero Jia came back and smiled at him, but Zero Jia still had a headache about Void's existence and took over his body again. Kurosaki said without looking back and continuing to be busy with the matter at hand. I'm back, there's nothing to rest here. Zero Jia naturally listened to the meaning of the words. Isan already knew the existence of the Void, and there was no problem under Isan's surveillance during the time he left. After a simple wash, Zero Jia lay down on the bed, physically and mentally exhausted under the continuous battle and pressure, but at this time, the voice of the Void sounded. Actually, you really don't need to treat me as a problem. My existence can solve the problem of your soul going out of your body. You don't want a righteous soul pill that you don't know to control your body. But you don't seem to be much different from that kind of thing. It's the same for me, and even more uncontrollable than you. I'm so sad when you say that. After you have me, you and the current Kurosaki Ichigo are just different from the power of the exterminator. It's just that you know too much. Zero stopped talking to the Void, and the Void's words reminded him at the same time, but his body itself did not have the bloodline of the exterminator, and he thought of a way other than the system. By making a wish to Banyu, he turned part of his own power into the power of the exterminator, so that he who has 3 powers can barely have the qualifications to become a substitute for the Spirit King. Did you sleep? Rukia's voice sounded in Zero's ears, and when she opened her eyes, Rukia, dressed in a white dress with suspenders, sat on the edge of the bed, holding a picture book in her hand, and was drawing something in that cute painting style. Not yet. What is the second dance, by Lien, and the sleep by Shue can still use this move? Rukia asked, holding up the schematic diagram of the second dance White Ripple she had drawn, and Zero thought about it for a moment that Rukia really hadn't learned White Ripple at this time, and that was after the Honyu incident. Actually, I don't just dance by Lien, I still have 3 dances, White Knives, and Tree White in my mind. 3 dances, White Sword, Tree White? Rukia repeated the names of the 2 moves with a puzzled face, confirming that she had never heard of them. Well, you don't have to go to class tomorrow, are you free? Tomorrow, I'm going to the Urawa store to refill something. It just so happens that I'll go with you, borrow the store manager's venue, and rest early. It's not too early. Tomorrow is June 17th? Zero took out his mobile phone and glanced at the time, 11:30 o'clock in the evening, and tomorrow was actually June 17th, and Rukia poked her head over to see the time on the phone screen. The shoulder strap on one side slipped quietly, and the washed hair exuded a faint fragrance, and Ryosuke only felt his heart beating wildly, and he was nervous and forgot to explain that tomorrow was the death day of Ichigo's mother. It's okay, I'm going to rest. He dragged the quilt directly over his head to hide his embarrassment, and Rukia tilted her head to show confusion about his sudden change of attitude, reached out and pulled the shoulder strap and went back to the closet to rest. Ryosuke suddenly realized that if Rukia and himself weren't there tomorrow, what would Ichigo do if he ran into Grand Fisher? Just hurry back, and Ryosuke, who couldn't resist the sleepiness, quickly fell asleep. Zero woke up in the morning and broke away from his body, handing over control of his body to Void. Hold on until I come back, don't do anything superfluous, do you understand? Zerosuke warned as he grabbed the Void, but he replied without caring that he was being caught. Don't worry, it's not like you don't know what Kurosaki Ishin is, so you won't have too many surprises. It's already the biggest surprise to let him make a move. Okay, I know what you mean, I'll do it. He slapped Lingjia's hand, cleaned up in front of the mirror, and went downstairs. Ryosuke, who was in a state of death, knocked on Ichigo's door, and Ichigo was already dressed and looking out the window in a daze. I'm going to leave for a while today, my body will be under the control of that guy, it's safe for the time being, I said don't be impulsive if you touch something, wait for me to come back. Ichigo still kept looking out the window, and replied simply. Good. Ryosuke didn't go on, he knew that Ichigo had always regarded his mother's death as his own fault, and he didn't know that his mother had actually died under the claws of the Grand Fisher to protect Ichigo because Yuabaka's holy fortress had lost the power of the exterminator. Ryosuke also considered whether he would give up going to the Urahara store and it would be better to accompany Ichigo to the grave sweep, but because the system did not prompt the opening of the main quest at this time, he was worried that the communication between the Void would make Grand Fisher wary of himself and not dare to change the plot, which would make things more complicated. After explaining, Zero returned to the room, and the princess picked up Rukia, who had finished washing, and jumped out of the window, and Rukia was startled. What are you doing? I have a bad premonition, go and come back quickly, you are walking too slowly. Rukia looked at Zero's serious expression and didn't ask too much. Soon the two arrived at the Urahara store, and Rukia knocked on the door of the store that had not yet opened. Who's it? Don't you knock, don't you see the store hasn't opened yet, bastard? Hey, missus, it's too early to leave the store. Hanakari opened the door scolding, and the man behind him saw that it was Rukia and Zirasuke. Don't be so rude, it's Miss Kuchiji and Your Excellency Zero, please wait a minute, I'll go and tell the store manager to get up now. Kasuke Urahara snorted and walked out with a look of no energy. You're early. Tai Jai, sure Tai, Xiaoyu. And welcome, Miss Kuchiki, Mr. Ryosuke. It just happened that I only bought from the Corpse Soul Realm yesterday, so what do you need today? 60 soul fixatives. Forgive me for being nosy, if you use too much fixative, it will be quite painful to leave the righteous corpse at that time. I know this, the righteous corpse has not been using a soul very lately. This is not a righteous skeleton for combat itself, of course it is reluctant to do this kind of thing, so do you want to swipe the card? Use the additional salary to destroy the void. Kasuke Urahara took the phone handed by Rukia and connected it to the system and said. I didn't expect to be eliminated in such a short time, yesterday this guy was not small, I heard that it also ate 2 dead, so that's enough. By the way, has the thing I ordered before arrived? Of course it has arrived, Xiao you go and bring it, okay. Xiao, you quickly handed Rukia a long item wrapped in a white cloth, which contained the righteous soul pill that transformed the soul, and Rukia said after opening and inspecting it. Do you only get one? Don't say that, I took a lot of effort to get it, and it doesn't seem to be needed now. By the way, Mr. Zirasuke is here today? Zirasuke was about to open his mouth to answer, when a cold system prompt sounded in his ears. The main quest opens, protect the Kurosaki family, and the reward, destroy the Grand Fisher, reward? Episode 16, oh no, there's a problem over there. Rukia took the phone, there was no message on it, and Kasuke Urahara also shook off the fan and sensed it, and it was true that there was no information nearby. But after thinking about Zero's ability, he was relieved. Zero was about to continue to pick up Rukia, but Rukia grabbed Zirasuke's hand and whispered. Don't hug the princess, the store manager Urahara is watching them, you can carry me on your back. Ryosuke looked at the store manager Urahara and Ryotetsusai on the side, then squatted down and Rukia on his back and ran quickly in the direction of the Ichigo family's grave sweeping. When the power of the void is in effect, the void has borrowed some of your spiritual pressure. Because of the sudden withdrawal of a part of the spiritual pressure, the body of Zero Jia's running body was stagnant, and Zero Jia's secret path is not good, whether it is Xian to Ichigo and they use the spiritual pressure to take away, or to use the spiritual pressure to resist the Grand Fisher. It's not good news, the probability of the latter is a little higher, after all, it also has the void of the memory of the original work, and it shouldn't be enough to challenge Isin. Rukia felt the change in the spiritual pressure of Zero, and asked. What's wrong? The void that controls my body borrows my spiritual pressure, and Ichigo may be in danger. Your void attacked them? It's unlikely, it's probably my power that he pulled to protect Ichigo and them. Earlier, Ichigo and his party were walking on the way to the cemetery, and the void walking behind them whispered to Ichigo. Don't be so depressed, talk to me, I'm not interested in you and your family anymore. Ichigo didn't make any fluctuations because of the void's words, and still walked silently. From time to time, there was the sound of Isin playing with Yuzi and Xiaoli. This slope is really tiring. The wanderer complained to Xiaoli. Really? I don't think so, come on, wanderer. You can't lose to Xiaoli, daddy is right behind you. Look, daddy can still do this, even handstands are fine. Ignore him, wanderer. If you cooperate with him, he will get carried away in no time. Looking at the crowd fighting, he tried to talk to Ichigo again. It's also June, it's really hot this year, Ichigo, you see it's so hot, the little girl over there is still wearing a white robe, and her hair is quite short, but isn't it hot to wear like this? Said Sue, looking at a little girl on the side of the mountain in a posture of looking. Listening to the virtual description, Ichigo's memory couldn't help but jump to the rainy day on June 17, 6 years ago, the day his mother was killed to protect himself, and he unconsciously looked in the direction of the virtual lookout, and the little girl with short hair and white robe overlapped with the girl in his memory 9 years ago. Ichigo rushed to the side path regardless of it, and Yuko and Natsuri also noticed Ichigo's abnormality and asked. Brother Ichigo, where are you going? Hearing the wanderers shout, Ichigo stopped playing and looked in the direction Ichigo had left, thoughtfully. Uncle Ichigo may want to go to the bathroom, I'll go with him, you guys go first. After thinking for a moment, he nodded to the void and resumed his playful attitude. Ichigo rushed into the forest path, halfway through, and looked up at the spot where he had just seen the short-haired little girl, who had long since disappeared. What's the matter, Ichigo, are you going to give up? Don't you want to know the truth about your mother's death? There's no truth, I never said that my mother was killed. No, you should have guessed it by now, it was because of your spiritual pressure at that time, shut up. No, don't put everything on spiritual pressure, there is nothing false at all. It seems that I seem to have almost guided, thinking like this, I seem to be very satisfied with the current result, and at this moment a third voice was heard, and the short-haired little girl appeared beside them. Why do you two smell of death? Was about to pull Ichigo up and retreat, but was instantly knocked away by the long fur that elongated from Grand Fisher's body, slamming into the trunk of a nearby tree and shaking the leaves to the ground. What the hell is going on? You're the guy who stood by the river 6 years ago, right? Why are you here now? Ichigo looked at the 5-meter-tall figure named Grand Fisher, the huge mask covered in extremely long hair. How could I possibly remember an idiot for something so long, and sure enough, you two can see me too. The little girl with short hair spoke. Who the hell are you? It's all wrong, you're lucky to see me alive. The little girl looked like she was molting, and her tentacles protruding from her head were about to connect to the top of the Grand Fisher's head. A black flash of virtual light shot out from the tree bound by the long hair, easily cutting through the long hair that bound him, and hitting the tentacles that were about to connect, and the Grand Fisher let out an angry howl. The void grasped and used the spirit borrowed from Reisuke to press Ichigo and leave. Let's go. Grand Fisher shot out countless long hairs that enveloped the place tightly, creating a spherical field. You're also void, what's going on with your form? So for the sake of us all being the same kind, can you spare us? Humans, death, and void are all food for me to become stronger, just don't you talk about it? Xian watched Grand Fisher's expression gradually become serious, he only had less than half of the strength of Zero, and it was still too reluctant to deal with this guy alone. Ichigo, who was on the side, suddenly walked up to Void with a look of disbelief and pointed at Grand Fisher. Wait, that means that the child I wanted to save back then was your mimic, and I was deceived by you from beginning to end? Grand Fisher said dismissively. Have you forgotten how Reisuke explained to you? Didn't you tell you not to be impulsive and wait for him to come back, you hot-blooded idiot? Void Death controlled Ichigo's body and yelled in his ear. He began to regret it a little, he had known that he wouldn't have interfered. How can I calm down, it's just that it killed my mother, and I'm the only guy, I'm going to take care of it myself. Ichigo roared. Episode 17, Void also had a headache about the situation at this point, and Grand Fisher was too far from what he knew. Ling Wu, Nameless Thousand Faces. Reisuke chopped up the realm created by Grand Fisher's long hair, and appeared in front of Ichigo and the two with Rukia on his back, and a cursory glance at the scene gave a rough idea of the situation. Grand Fisher, that's what it's called. Hide your body and grow mimic bait from your head to become human. Rukia pressed quickly on her phone, bringing up Death's information about Grand Fisher. Eating people who can see it, that is to say, only hunting people with high spiritual power, for 54 years to constantly repel the god of death, it is evident that it has survived to this day. That's a good point, little ghost, anyway, there are so many people who can see me today, and I'm really earning a giggle, it's so cool, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's nerve-wracking, does my stomach fit so much? Grand Fisher stretched out his slender withered fingers to count the number of people present, and let out an ugly giggle, and Reisuke tossed the righteous soul pill that Rukia had taken from Kasukirahara to Ichigo. This is a righteous soul pill that can force the soul out of the body. I know that even if I say that this guy Grand Fisher is not something you can deal with, you will not give up revenge alone, right? Ichigo swallowed the righteous soul pill and entered the state of death without saying a word, but Void still did not let go of Ichigo's body, and whispered in the ear of the soul who controlled Ichigo's body. I know you're transforming your soul, Don't mess around, this is not a stage for you to mess with, so you don't get destroyed. The soul was still resisting being bound, but after listening to the words, it stopped struggling, and quietly watched the situation in front of him. Ichigo pulled out his massive slashing knife and leapt up to slash at Grand Fisher, who took the attack with a single wave of his hair. Little ghost, do you know how many Grim Reapers I've killed over the years? Just like a rookie like you also want to challenge Uncle Ben? Longhair quickly wrapped Ichigo and brought out a lot of blood, and when she saw this, Rukia raised her hand and was about to chant the binding road, but was stopped by Zirosuke. Destroy yourself, Rondinini's black dog, burn it out at a glance, cut your own throat, what are you doing? Don't make a move, please. What stupid thing are you talking about? It's more than 50 years of death, can't be contained, how can Ichigo him? Please don't make a move, this is my fight. With that, Ichigo cut off the long hair that was wrapped around him and attacked the Grand Fisher again. Rukia pulled out the hand that was grabbed by Zero and said anxiously. You know Ichigo can't deal with it, why do you want him to go? If the situation is dangerous, I will take action, because I fell for the mimicry, my mother was killed to protect herself, and now the murderer of my mother is in front of me, and I want to make up for my mistakes alone. Do you understand the feeling of wanting to end everything by yourself no matter what? But Rukia watched Ichigo struggle to fight the Grand Fisher, remembering the night in the corpse soul realm. Shiba Heian also chose to face it alone for the sake of dignity, and Captain Yukatake also asked himself not to interfere, and Heian never regretted it until he died under his own knife. Thinking of these, Rukia couldn't help but clench her fists. It's too dull, little ghost, how can someone like you hide in Tibet, how can you hurt me? Just wielding a knife, like this can't kill me. Look at yourself, it's just that you dare to say to your companions without shame at this level, don't interfere, you're really naive, little ghost. Ichigo has been on the back foot in constant confrontations, and he has exhausted all his strength just to dodge and resist Grand Fisher's attacks, and the wounds on his body are accumulating, and the agile Grand Fisher has not given him a chance to attack at all. Grand Fisher stretched out his palm, and his 5 fingers stretched out and shot out, easily penetrating Ichigo's defenses, and penetrating his chest. You're dead, you're too young to be swayed by emotions, it's time to put an end to the imp. Grand Fisher stretched out his other hand and pinched the mimic doll, which immediately changed into the appearance of Ichigo's mother, Masaki Kurosaki. How can you do it to your mother? My hands can easily find the most cherished thing in your memory and make it exactly the same. No matter how cold the Grim Reaper is, there is someone you can't get your hands on, and your object is her. Right? Ichigo. Then the doll said in a Kurosaki voice. Do you know what you're doing? I won't allow you to blaspheme my mother like that. Ichigo swung his knife and was about to slash at the puppet, but he couldn't help but pause the moment he made contact, and the attack hidden behind the puppet was about to penetrate Ichigo completely. Knowing that it was already time, Zero Jia instantly blocked in front of Ichimu's body and swung the nameless Thousand Faces to freeze the Grand Fisher's attack. Didn't my brother say don't make a move? Ichigo said in a pleading tone. I can understand your feelings, but I can't allow you to die in front of me, so understand my feelings a little. Grand Fisher took advantage of Zirosuke's exchange to communicate with 5 fingers that suddenly shot through the ice, scratching Zirosuke's hand, and then laughed wildly. Let me see who you cherish and what your memories are. Grand Fisher pointed at Zero in disbelief as he reimagined the doll's appearance, and although Zero couldn't see the expression under its mask, he could tell by the words that it saw something it shouldn't see. Withdraw the scattered spiritual pressure, and the power of the void is taking effect. The void on the side naturally understands the current situation, and there are some things that can't be leaked, so he returns the power to Zero without resistance. Everyone was surprised to see that Grand Fisher's puppet had turned into Rukia's appearance, and Rukia was even more shocked and subconsciously muttered to herself. How could it be me? Actually, I was going to freeze you and hand it over to Ichigo to end your life, but you seem to be seeing something you shouldn't be seeing. Zero Jia burst out with all the spiritual pressure, plunging the nameless Thousand Faces pure white blade into the ground and releasing cold chi from the blade, causing the cold air to pass through the ground to the bottom of the Grand Fisher, instantly freezing the Grand Fisher. Tree White. As Reisuke shouted the name of the move, the Grand Fisher shattered completely into ice chips and scattered all over the ground, completely disappearing. Episode 18, sorry, I didn't let you kill it with your own hands, but it's all over. Reisuke slowly put away the nameless Thousand Faces, and at this moment, the sky began to rain, as if to set off the atmosphere at this time. Brother, you said it was over, right? Yes, it's over. But this time too. It's not your fault. I'm sorry brother, can you let me be quiet? With a simple healing treatment, Ichigo returned to his body and walked towards his mother's tombstone. You see, I'm honest that I don't have to be so wary of me. Until Zero entered the body, he chattered endlessly. Originally, Ryosuke didn't plan to kill Grand Fisher directly. After all, there was still a little bit of a scene behind it in the original plot, but due to negligence and forgetting its abilities, Ichigo should be more difficult to accept now. Rukia looked at Ichigo's distant back, and after a while, she withdrew her gaze and looked at Zero in front of her. There were many things she wanted to ask but she didn't know where to start, and she mustered up the courage to open her mouth but saw Zero Jia taking off his coat. "What are you doing?" asked Rusha. Ryosuke propped his coat on top of the two of them and said, "If you catch a cold by blocking the rain a little, let's go and follow and see, there should be no other problems. The main quest is completed, only the opinion of those who know about it will be rewarded. Kurosaki Ichigo and Kuchiji Rukia's friendship will increase, Kurosaki Ichigo's current opinion will be increased by 5%, and a small amount of spiritual pressure will be rewarded, and Rukia's current opinion will be 7.5%. Grand Fisher's elimination increases void power by a small amount, causing the story to deviate from the enemy's strength by slightly increasing." But Rukia didn't move, still looking up at Zirasuke, and spoke. "Why did Grand Fisher copy your most precious thing by me? Is this answer important to you? I thought you'd want to ask about Shubai. It's important, but don't you have the answer in your heart? The life of the corpse soul realm is far longer than you think. Okay, let's go." Rukia didn't continue to insist on this topic at the urging of Zero, although she wanted to tell Rukia that she was not a person from this world, but now was not the time. One family and the two of them went to the tombstone first, and let the raindrops lap on them. "I'm sorry Mom, I didn't be able to avenge you with my own hands." "What the hell, I thought you were peeing and getting lost, so it's here. I specially got an umbrella for you. Didn't Ryosuke stay with you?" "I don't want to pull it, it's already wet anyway, and it's useless to hold the umbrella now, don't poke it again." Ichigo kept poking Ichigo's head with the tip of the umbrella, and Ichigo couldn't bear to take the umbrella and fight back, and finally held up the umbrella. "Time is so fast, your mother has been dead for 6 years. Looking at the way you are jumping around now, your mother should be relieved in the spirit of the sky. Haven't you quit smoking? When did you start smoking again? When Yuko and Natsuri were born?" In the face of Ichigo's inquiry, Ichishin took a puff silently. "When?" It was probably when Ryosuke came to this house. Of course, Ichishin didn't tell Ichigo about this, but just spoke. "Your mother, and she also praised me for my handsome gesture of holding a cigarette, and now that I think about it, I was praised by your mother for my appearance, so I smoke in front of her grave every year." Ichishin noticed Ichigo's clenched fist and patted Ichigo on the back and comforted. "You don't have to look sullen like this, didn't I cheer you up a little? Why can you still laugh? Why no one blames me? I can't do anything, when my mother died, and just now, why didn't everyone blame me? It's better for you to scold me harshly, I'm better. Why blame you? It's just that the woman I like died trying to protect her children. You have to remember that you are the woman I like, the one who bought her life for it, Dad. If you can, I would like you to live an ordinary life, grow up slowly, and not die before me, and end up smiling if you can. Otherwise, I don't have the face to see Misaki. Don't hesitate, it's too early for you to bear that sadness. I'll go down and wait for you first." As he spoke, he walked towards the way back, and happened to meet Zero and Rukia. Only Rukia felt a little embarrassed, and she threw an umbrella to Zirasuke and continued to walk down. "Let's go and go back. If Ichigo learns from you, maybe I'll be able to hug my grandson sooner," Ichigo said as he watched Ryosuke and Rukia bow down. "Rukia, please let me continue to be a god of death for the time being. I want to be like my brother, become stronger. I want to protect those who are being targeted, although I didn't avenge my mother with my own hands, but I don't want anyone to experience what happened to me again." "Oh, you're here. Mr. Urahara, why are you here?" Rukia was surprised to see Kasuke Urahara coming with an umbrella. "Urahara, who is that?" Ichigo looked at the man in front of him in a green and white bucket hat. "A grocery store manager." Ryosuke thought about it and introduced it first. "Because I found out that Xiaoyu just took the wrong one, and I gave it to you as an ordinary righteous soul pill, and I was going to recycle and destroy it." The transformation soul in Rukia's pocket seemed to hear that she was going to destroy herself, and she trembled a little, and Zero spoke. "Actually, there is no need to destroy it, it also has the right to live, and it didn't make any dangerous moves just now. But you know, if something goes wrong, I'm not going to turn a blind eye," Kasuke Urahara said seriously. "I think it's at least safer than fiction." Ryosuke said, "So, do you still want to snatch back the goods you sold to customers? In that case, I have to return the money to you." "No, I'm happy with the product." Kasuke Urahara looked at Rukia and then at Zirasuke, his eyes swept back and forth, making Rukia's face slightly red and a little embarrassed. Kasuke Urahara finally sighed and said, Defeated by the two of you, I didn't expect it to be because of such a reason, and I will believe it if Mr. Zero says it's okay. With a wave of goodbye to the crowd, he turned to leave, and on the way back, Ryosuke picked up the iconic lion puppet and stuffed the transformed soul into it. From today onwards, you will be called a soul. As long as you don't mess around, no one will want to destroy you again. Episode 19. Ichigo, you're reading a magazine again, why don't you come and watch TV together? Anyway, I'm not interested in this kind of subject. Zero, Ishin, and Yuko are sitting in front of the TV waiting for the show to start, and Ichigo is sitting at the dining table boringly flipping through manga magazines, and the sound of the program comes from the TV. Then let's invite him to appear, the super popular psychic of the new century, the messenger of hell, Mr. Tangguanyinji. Tangguanin, Temple wears a hat with the word SP written on it, round-framed sunglasses, black braids, and a mustache. Doing his movements, he appeared in a posture of crossing his hands in front of his chest, palms facing inward, clenching inward, and said, "The spirit is with you at any time, oh ha 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 ha." Isin and the Wanderer made the same movements to the TV at the same time, and laughed out of their mouths. Ryosuke, on the other hand, turned to Ichigo and made this gesture, and at the same time imitated it in his mouth, and Ichigo complained with a look at the mentally ill. "Isn't it, brother, are you also the type to be happy watching this kind of show?" Hearing Ichigo's complaint, Ryosuke asked himself if he was happy. Maybe a little bit. He who is familiar with the plot of the original work thinks that things related to Tangguanin Temple should be considered not dangerous, and he can finally take a breath. "That's cool," exclaimed the Wanderer as he watched the TV show. "Hey, he's great, Ichigo-san, he must be able to see that kind of thing." Ichigo sighed as he put down the manga and took 2 sips of water, quickly recounting his experience. "Actually, it's not a good thing to see the soul." But after Yuko finished speaking, he turned his attention back to the TV, and did not hear Ichigo's reply. Only Natsuri, who was sitting opposite, stared at Ichigo blankly after hearing the words. "Why are you staring at me? You've run out of water in your cup." "Nothing." "What are you doing? What do you want to say when you don't usually do this? Don't you envy the Wanderer? Our brother and sister are the only ones who have no spiritual abilities like the boss, and they can't see the spirit, so they can be interested in that kind of show." Speaking of this, brother Ling Jia has also seen it, but it seems that he also watched it with relish. Ichigo pointed to Ryosuke, who was laughing with the show, and said to Natsuri. And Ling Jia, who was laughing at the TV on the side, was completely unaware of his relaxed move, inadvertently interrupting the main plot that was running automatically. The plot deviation has increased slightly, and it has no effect on the enemy. Zirusuke was confused by this sudden system prompt, and even began to seriously think about what had happened to the guy who had transformed Grand Fisher into a broken face in the imaginary circle because he had killed Grand Fisher. "I didn't think that I just watched TV and the butterfly effect happened." Although the void in the body knows the reason for the system prompt, it doesn't intend to tell Zero. Tomorrow's Soul Search, tomorrow's emergency live broadcast special, raid on the abandoned hospital in Tokyo Cereza town. The main story begins, Don Kananji Temple, the content, reward, failure to die. It seems that his optimism has come to an end, so much so that this time he didn't even tell me the content of the mission. Zero's 2-day peaceful life is fleeting, except for the fact that he often uses the nameless Thousand Faces replica sleeved white snow. His body's tolerance to temperature has improved, and there is no more good news and bad news. Since Soul Hunt is a 25% rated program, 1 out of every 4 Japanese people is watching the show, and the result is that in addition to Ichigo's family, Orihime Inoue and Yato Taitora and other classmates close to Ichigo are all present that night. Whoa. What's that sound? Ichigo asked Rukia as he looked at the abandoned hospital where the strange sound came from. This is the cry of the earthbound spirit, and there is indeed a spirit here, earthbinding, but why do I sound so much like void? Yes, it's about to degenerate into void, and it's in the process of transformation right now. Of course, it wasn't just Ichigo, Rukia, and Zirusuke who heard the voice, but everyone who had experienced the attack of the void and had outstanding spiritual power felt it. There were too many onlookers present, and in order to prevent the situation from escalating and affecting the safety of ordinary people, Zero Jia directly handed over his body to the void control and entered the state of death. There are too many people, I'm going to bury that earthbound spirit directly. After speaking, he rushed into the hospital, and Xiaoli, who was on the side, witnessed the process but did not say anything, and smiled at her slightly. Is it okay for my brother to go over like this? Ichigo asked, pointing to the back of Zirusuke leaving. Is there still a problem with this kind of thing? Rushing into the hospital, Zirusuke quickly climbed the stairs to reach the top floor of the abandoned hospital where the earthbound spirit was, but was blocked by a figure. Young man, what are you going to do? Get out of the way, I'm going to let that earthbound spirit ascend to heaven. Young man, you're not human, are you? But no, I won't allow you to let him ascend to heaven now. Ryosuke squinted his eyes and re-examined the one in front of him, wearing a hat with the word SP written on it, round-framed sunglasses, black braids, and a mustache, which was obviously a slight deviation from the one he knew. Ling Jie felt the gathering of the other party's spiritual pressure, and the Tangwaning Temple gathered the spiritual pressure in his hand and aimed it at himself, and the spiritual pressure strength of the Tangwaning Temple in front of him was actually comparable to the snake body that had been eliminated before. What do you want to do? Ling Jie couldn't figure out what was different about this Tangwaning Temple, and didn't dare to have the slightest contempt and asked coldly. I know that Earthbound Spirit is in the process of turning into a monster, so I'm going to speed up the process. Weak monsters can't be observed by ordinary people. I'm going to use it to attract more powerful monsters, and then destroy them on camera, and convey this courage to the children in front of the screen, and see me brave in the face of evil spirits, and know what courage is. Tangwaning said in a flat tone, but the conversation seemed to inspire Zirosuk's backscales, and Zirosuk forced himself to calm down, barely squeezing a sentence out of his teeth. Do you know what you're talking about? Are you taking the lives of those people in front of you to play this ridiculous game of courage with you? Ryosuke's right hand clenched as if it was about to break the hilt, and Tangwaning Temple quickly compressed the gathered spiritual pressure to the size of a projectile, and pointed his finger back at the chain that the earth-binding spirit was devouring. The precise hit of the chain accelerated the blurring of the earthbound spirit, and the white substance instantly enveloped the earthbound spirit's entire body. I'm a hero, so I'll keep those people safe. Suddenly, Russia's phone suddenly rang rapidly, and countless red dots appeared on the screen of the phone. With your anger, the power of the void rises. Downstairs, felt the change in Zero, and muttered to himself excitedly. This idiot is really good, things are about to get more interesting soon. Ryosuke looked at Tangwanyinji's eyes with a slight bloodshot, and Tangwaning Temple seemed to be a dead man in his eyes, and he still waved his knife and rushed out. Episode 20, even if it was Zirosuk, who was occupied by anger, the object of wielding the knife was not the Tangwaning Temple in front of him, and the life of such a person was not enough to put the lives of the people below on the same scale. Ling Wu, nameless thousand faces, with a single sword, he was about to break out of the cocoon and turn into a mantis void earth binding spirit, and then shouted eagerly downstairs. Rukia, Ichigo, hurry up, I'm too late to be alone. Hearing Ryosuke's shout, Ichigo swallowed his soul without saying a word and joined the battle, and Rukia also used the ghost path to protect the crowd. After shouting, he aimed at a bat that swooped into the crowd and threw a nameless thousand faces, but was missed by the skull-bearing stick of Tangwaning Temple flying out from the side. Zero used the knife chain to retrieve the nameless thousand faces, and in a fit of rage, he attached an excess amount of spiritual pressure to the knife chain and left a huge crack on the concrete floor on the roof of the abandoned hospital. Zero Jie jumped up and instantly came behind Bat Su. The white ribbon at the end of the nameless thousand faces flew quickly, and in an instant, Bat Xian had become countless pieces of ice slag, and under extreme anger, Ling Jie's voice almost changed to person. Haven't you had enough? It's the first time I've wanted to swing a knife at someone like that. The power of the void rises. Young man, I know you are kind, but you should believe that as a hero, I can handle this situation and not let anyone get hurt. Zero Jie dodged and came behind Tangwaning Temple, grabbed the back of his head with his left hand in one hand, and transmitted his spiritual pressure to him, so that Tangwaning Temple could simultaneously perceive the void he had discovered. Feel good, this is your masterpiece, this is the situation you can solve? Gather so many humans with high spiritual power here, and send a dinner signal to the void, right? The power of the void rises. Zero. Jie instantly lowered the temperature and froze Tangwaning Temple's feet, and Tangwaning Temple's body was also covered with a thin layer of frost, and Ling Jie said coldly in Tangwaning Temple's ear. If you dare to move again, or if someone dies tonight because of your stupid hero game, I promise you will disappear into this world with your soul, you don't deserve to go to hell. With Ichigo and Rukia joining the battle, the situation was quickly brought under control, and through the battle with Grand Fisher, Ichigo's control of his power increased significantly. Rukia accidentally bumps into a person while protecting the crowd, and just as she is about to apologize, she discovers that the person is Kasuke Urahara. Manager Urahara, why are you here? Do you have any intentions? It's so annoying. What are the intentions of others? These two kids like to watch this show very much, and they say that they are going to come here today, so I have to come. Kasuke Urahara said as he touched the heads of Mrs. Hanakari and Tsushiya Yu. Then you don't want to take a handle at all when you see this situation, do you? I think Miss Kuchiki, Mr. Ichigo, and Mr. Ryosuke are completely at ease, and it seems that there is no room for me to interfere. Is it because no one paid for it? It's so sad. How can Miss Kichiji look at me like this? Well, what's the matter? Suddenly, a man in overalls appeared behind Kasukirahara and patting him and asking. Do you know the girl who disrupted the stream? Doesn't seem right on your face? Can I ask you to come over here? With a pop, a flash of light exploded on Urahara's assistant, and the 3 staff members who approached instantly fainted, and Rukia and Urahara Kasuke and his party also took advantage of this gap to slip away. How can you use the guys in the corpse soul realm here casually? I can't help it, I'm an honest businessman, so I don't want to be dragged down by Miss Kichiji and leave a strange record. First Dance Moonwhite Zero Jia poured nearly half of his spiritual pressure to expand the range of First Dance Moonwhite by half, and turned the last 3 bats into ice slag in one go. Then the nameless 1,000 faces were placed around the neck of Don Guanin Temple, and Rukia saw this scene and hurriedly rushed into the building beyond the security guards. Hey, that girl over there, stop it, catch her. That's Rukia. Hey, Chado, where are you going? Rukia looked like she needed help. Hearing Chado say this, Kiko Asano grabbed Chado and said. Don't make a fuss, you're only going to make a big fuss. I don't even know what's going on. Tang Guanin Temple didn't dare to look directly into Ling Jia's eyes, and said a little depressed. So am I wrong? Seeing that Zero Jia didn't respond to him, Tang Guanin Temple continued to say to himself. I just want to convey that emotion to more people, the courage not to retreat in the face of a powerful enemy. Is this also wrong? Heroes exist to protect everyone, and it is because there is danger that some people will come forward, not to create danger in order to stand up. Zero Jia slowly spoke, and the coldness in his tone was transmitted to the neck of Tang Guanin Temple with the blade of the nameless 1,000 faces. Don't do anything stupid. Rukia shouted out of breath. Zero Suk put away the blade that was hanging on the neck of Tang Kananji Temple, and with a slight slash on the concrete floor, an ice mark passed to the door of the roof, freezing the door to block the security guards behind Rukia. Mr. Tang Guanyinji is okay. That girl opened the door, don't affect the live broadcast of Tang Guanin Temple. Zero, Jia said coldly to Tang Guanin Temple as he put away the nameless 1,000 faces and walked towards Rukia. If you can understand me, deal with the follow-up of the matter. I say that if you do this kind of thing again, or endanger the safety of ordinary people, no matter where you are, I will definitely make you disappear from this world, definitely. I'm sorry, did you get the wrong object? Or do you still not understand? With that, Ryosuke picked up Rukia and left from the hidden side of the back of the hospital, leaving Tang Guanin Temple to deal with the follow-up. The main quest has been completed, and the favorability of Tang Guanin Temple has been greatly increased, currently at 5%, the reward spirit pressure has been increased by a small number of times, and Rukia's favorability has increased by 2%, currently at 9.5%, reducing the plot deviation by a small amount.